Hey, Eric.
Oh, hey, Chris.
Did you know that subscribers to this podcast can support us on Patreon?
Chew they can?
They chew can at patreon.com/retroam. And now, would you like to hear some hot sounds that I have recorded?
I do.
Welcome to Retrograde Amnesia, a comprehensive podcast series about Xenogears. Join us as we leap across the chasm between our former awkward teenage selves to meet our washed adult selves in order to assemble some sort of truth about this video game. My name is Chris, and today I'm joined by Eric. Hey, Eric.
You're getting better at that each time. Each time is a refinement of our mission statement that I think becomes more accurate with every revision. And I don't think you can top it every time, but you do every time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm trying to just rewrite what I said last time, but do it from memory and then just kind of fiddle with the words and see what comes out.
So next time you should translate it to German, then translate it back. Or just say it in German.
Willkommen zu retrograder Gedächtnisschwund.
No, I won't say. I may say it in that weird Solarian language, which actually might be German.
Yeah.
After all, I don't know, but thanks for joining me. Our podcast is going great, by the way. It sounds wonderful, and I'm enjoying the process of doing so. And I think my favorite moment of this podcast so far was when you did the Michael Caine thing with old Nisan.
Michael Caine.
Yeah.
Because when we left off with our friends, Bart and Faye and Citan have rescued Margie from the clutches of Shakan, and as they get back to Nisan, old Nisan has a good cry. He's very moved by Margie's return to Nisan. And I can see why.
Yeah, he thinks it's beautiful.
And Nisan is quite beautiful.
Yes, it's a wonderful place. Just a housekeeping note first about a confirmation of what we're doing going forward. Last time we pronounced Jugend as Jugend, but the actual German pronunciation is Jugend.
Jugend?
How are we going to say that?
Jung. I think we're just going to say Jugend.
Okay, let's go with Jugend then.
All right, yeah.
I just want to acknowledge that for the listeners at home if we're pronouncing the other thing wrong. But yeah, Nisan is a nice...
It is a city of peace.
It's a stone city of peace. This is the chapter City of Peace. Actual translation, Madonna of Nisan, which I think is more accurate.
That is true.
And it plays Singing of the Gentle Wind for the very first time.
I like Singing of the Gentle Wind.
I do too. I think I told you in text that it makes me want to go get a blanket with Margie and take it to the forest, and we feed each other pieces of cake and we laugh about the old times while smelling flowers.
This place is a nice break from what we've been exposed to thus far, because it's mostly been Aveh wasn't a dirty town, but
it was a dirty town.
Okay, fine. I was trying to be nice to the citizens of Aveh. I was going to say the Avehans.
Bloodovicans.
And we've also been to Dazzle and
Dazzle's filthy.
Yeah, Dazzle is filthy as shit. Like, they make you sleep on the floor there if you need to stay.
I imagine Dazzle is being covered in like Sandman dust and stuff. Aveh's just dirty. Lahan is like BO smell all the time, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. So Nisan is pretty. It's full of stone. It's laid out in a way I think a lot of RPG towns are laid out, where there is a giant cathedral in the middle of a lake, and the town is built around it with, I think there's just one bridge that goes to the cathedral, and all of the houses look modern and almost Victorian, but there's also this layer of moss over top of them.
Yeah, it's an old city.
Yeah, but it makes it kind of look like a hobbit town, but a church town.
Right.
Because of all the vegetation that's growing on the buildings. But it seems like the vegetation is not there because of urban decay, but because it's beautiful.
Yeah, either that or they worship plants or something like that. It's definitely a stylistic choice.
They definitely worship some stuff here, which we'll get to later.
I mean, I don't want to call it a theocracy, but everyone in the town definitely has some thoughts about Margie and thoughts about religion. Did you talk to any of the townsfolk before you entered any buildings?
Yeah, I got some mixed messages from the townsfolk.
Yeah.
One dude told Bart specifically that if you want to avenge your father, well, that's okay. Which doesn't seem like a very religious thing to go after, but I guess I can agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, if you need to go live your truth by doing violence, then that's the way that you wash your hands of it. I spoke to a lady on the street who says, it hurts to see our children placed in danger, but if it moves our country in the right direction, then it's to our benefit.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, so that's some shit that you hear people who are like deeply evangelical and then also send all 6 of their sons off to the war.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, where you think that would conflict, but in whatever brain stuff's going on, totally fine.
Everyone seems to know Bart here, so the connectedness of Margie and Bart is something that all the townsfolk here know about.
Well, they know Margie. I mean, they know Bart, but they also know who Bart is, which is in contrast to everybody in Aveh, the city that he's from, not recognizing this dude unless he steps foot in the palace.
So I take it that he spent a lot of time here as a youth before Shaikan took over?
I guess,
Is that why they know him?
Him and Margie grew up together, right? As same-age cousins, and she's the great mother of Nisan, so one would assume that he hung out with her a lot, like they all know on a first-name basis. Even, like in some of those houses, there's Aveh soldiers that are from Nisan just staying there, and they're not going to rat on him or anything like that. So it's like a big honor system where everyone... I wish I had more clarity on the relationship between Nisan and Aveh. If it's like, you know, our local archbishop church hierarchy here, then only some people go over to the Vatican in Vatican City.
Or it could be a similar relationship between like Vatican City itself and Italy.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point, too.
You know, I don't think that...
It's geographically not enclosed, though.
Yeah, I don't think that Nisan is necessarily its own state, because it appears to be part of Aveh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's in the Aveh territory, definitely.
It must be intimately part of Aveh, because there's a lot of talk later on about how the Great Mother has the right to become the queen or something of that nature. It's weird.
It gets scary a little bit later. But yeah, Dazzle's in Aveh, Bloodevic's in Aveh, Nisan's in Aveh. These are all Aveh country towns.
Did you stumble into the meeting with the sisters and some dudes that were discussing
in the town hall?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the last thing I did. How did you interpret that?
Actually, this game did a really effective job of showing us how the townsfolk feel about the impending war.
Yeah, there's conflict.
People are extremely worried about what's going to happen, and they're talking about how they're going to need to stow away in the bottoms of the basement, but they don't want people to know that they've got these hideaways because they don't want people to be frightened.
I found a lot where they agree the monarchy should be restored, but they do the typical politician bullshit when you want to talk about stuff but not actually take action on anything and just kind of hem and haw back and forth.
Yeah.
But they did, when I went on that meeting, they seemed to agree that Shaikan will conquer Nisan next, so they better finally do something to take him out.
But they also agree that Shaikan's not going to come in there and just fucking kill them all either.
Right, because it would be counterproductive. And maybe make them vulnerable to Nisan attack.
But this part...
Or not Nisan, Norchun.
There was a part, too, kind of towards the end of this conversation where the camera kind of pulled back and just panned across all of the sprites of the townsfolk that were in the town hall discussing this. And it wasn't... The music kept playing, but there was no dialogue going on. And it kind of just... I don't know if it was my own imagination building the scene, but it really got across this feeling of these people are fucking scared about what's going to happen.
It's like a town on the verge of a major war and apocalypse type thing. If you talk to the nuns it's one level below that town meeting house, they said that not everyone there is excited about Margie returning, and some consider it to be a nuisance, her presence there.
Oh, because she's going to be the cause of the war?
Yeah, because it's going to be a catalyst for future destruction that is going to make a lot of people suffer.
We don't get a lot of mention of the Fatima Jasper throughout this whole section of the game.
Yeah.
Is that because the common person doesn't know about the Fatima Jasper, or is that just because the writers temporarily forgot about the MacGuffin they created?
God, it could be either single one. We know about it a lot because it is an object for people of high birth to have conflict over, and it's a major plot device, but the townsfolk aren't in on these plot devices, so I'm going to go with, ultimately, I think it's choice A, where it's none of their concern and they don't care about treasure because they can barely leave their hovels.
Did you try to go stay at the inn at this point?
Yeah, and you know what happens instead?
They gave me some tea that reduced my weight, is what I wrote down.
There's more of that weight stuff coming back in. It does restore your health, though, in case you want to go to the woods and beat the ass of that guy that you fought in the first fight of the tournament.
Gonzales?
Yes, if you want to go kill multiple Gonzaleses. The Gonzales clan.
The poor Gonzales clan. They've been wiped off the face of the earth.
Yeah. Loincloth dudes.
Faye's the true fascist here.
Did you exit out the back of the town?
No.
You can actually go, it's pointless, but you can exit out the back of the town. And that's the same thing it did in Bloodavik, where it doesn't go to the world map, it goes to like a matte painting of the town, and you can walk around the entire lake and make a loop for no reason.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing to access out there, but it lets you do it.
I think I did that later, and I thought that there was going to be some additional areas to access, but I think all it lets you do is enter the town from the different entry points, the 4 different cardinal directions, and that's about it.
There's multiple exits. Did you go to the artist's house?
Yeah, I did, and they didn't have much to say. They were just like, didn't one guy say, like, I forgot what I was doing or something of that nature?
I didn't get that. They were the first one to make reference to the painting of the Great Mother in the cathedral, but no one is allowed to see the painting.
Ah.
And also, despite the fact that it was an artist, Faye doesn't have shit to say.
Yeah, that is weird.
Even though he's an artist.
Yeah.
He'd be like, oh, nice palette, bro. What colors are you? Maybe, you ever think that the artist thing with Faye, I know it ties into the plot, but that maybe he just makes real shitty paintings. Like he makes like child finger painting stuff and no one wants to tell him because he's the new guy in town and he's kind of in a fragile state all the time anyway. It's like, oh no, man, you're good. I'll hang that in my house.
I don't know. Those flames are pretty rocking.
Yeah, I guess.
And we do engage with the Faye painting plot here in a little bit.
So Faye, what was he painting in the beginning of the game? Was it the well tall?
No, it was the way the painting in the very first scene of the game when we first met Faye was we were seeing the scene of Lahan being burned down.
Okay.
And then the game zoomed in on the flames, and then when it zoomed back out, we saw Faye's painting. So it was as if he had a premonition of what was to come.
So it's like in Surf Ninjas when you can see the future in Game Gear games.
Guys, look at this.
I'm going to leave that to you to confirm or deny.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
I'll do some research, link it up, talk to some writers.
Okay. Coming soon, a podcast about how Xenogears connects to Surf Ninjas.
It's easier than you think.
No, it's true. The only other thing I have here is that if you go into the shop, you can talk to a woman who Bart calls Grandma.
Yeah.
And
that's weird.
I think that he's using the old lady term. There's a Japanese term for old man and a Japanese term for old lady, but it's not as pejorative sounding as it is in English. Mm-hmm. So sometimes that gets translated to like grandma or grandpa or pops or old guy.
We have a pops occurrence later that's real good. But
so I think it's just him expressing a level of familiarity with the woman in the town.
So it's not necessarily a pejorative, because if I call someone grandpa who's not my grandpa, I'm explicitly making fun of how old they are.
Yeah, I think it works. I think it plays differently in Japanese, and I think it's difficult to translate, because you see that in anime a lot, where certain characters will call, like Goku, for example, calls Master Roshi old man a lot, and a lot of times it's translated as Gramps or Geezer or something of that nature, but it's very playful.
Cool. So nothing else in the town? I
was not planning on referencing Dragon Ball tonight, by the way. I'm sorry.
No, it's going to happen every time, I think.
Yeah, it's true. I think that's about it. Yeah, at that point, we wander the town for a little bit, and we have to go meet Margie at the church.
Yes. As soon as you enter the cathedral, it plays "The Wounded Shall Advance into the Light." Which is a Super Nintendo sounding MIDI where it tries to emulate some kind of choral arrangement of people singing, but it doesn't really sound all the way there because it's 1998 and these aren't real instruments.
Yeah, I wrote down, yes, this is a church with church music.
Yes,
which I think is
that's a much better description than whenever I said church music plays.
The nuns, I don't know if they're supposed to be called nuns or sisters.
That's a good point, because nuns are called sister. Shit. I was going to say, obviously they're sisters, but you don't call a nun, you call her sister.
None of the characters I think ever referred fuck you.
Yeah.
None of the characters in the game actually refer to any of these women as nuns. They just call them the sisters, sect sisters. So anyway, the sect sisters come running at
sisters, come on, man. You can't.
The sect sisters, that's what they call them, come running to Margie at 2x speed because they're excited to see her.
Oh, yeah.
And they indicate that they had faith that Margie's cousin would rescue her, that is Bart. And they also confirm that her mom and grandma are dead.
Yeah, they kind of nail that home just in case. Or they're back around in the shop. Who can say?
Yeah, but nonetheless, we're made to understand that Margie is well liked by this group of holy women.
Yeah, I picture it as someone returning, and then it's like meeting all your girlfriends you haven't seen in a long time. Every movie depiction I've seen of that means they all just start either crying or laughing, and it's just indecipherable noises coming out of the huddle.
Yeah. So anything else before we go upstairs and see the gallery?
We meet Sister Agnes. She is not a portrait character, but she is a named character they refer to at least once or twice, and you can go back and talk to her later. So she is a character.
She appears to be in charge of these people.
She's head sister. I mean, I guess Margie's second in command would be, even though she's probably much older than Margie.
Correct.
So yeah, they take us up to the gallery, and we get 180 degrees away from the front and stare down the entire church. And what does that reveal?
Well, first Margie says that her and Bart used to hide up here when they're playing.
Oh yeah, so that means they're familiar with...
Yeah, it's trying to show us that Margie and Bart had a familiar relationship as children and grew up as almost as brother and sister almost. And when you get around... Are we walking on a rafter or what? It's weird.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if it's a rafter. Like the staircase is weird, and then I picture it as a balcony that goes around the entire thing, kind of like an overlook. You would think that they would have seating up there if it's a true cathedral, but maybe that's just our overstuffed churches that we've been in our entire lives.
That's true. The first thing I noticed, before we get to the statues, was the giant glass-stained window in the back. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's any iconography on that thing, but when I first saw it, because I couldn't really remember how this scene was going to play out from my original playthrough, when I first saw it, I was half expecting a giant gear to come crashing through just to be some foreshadowing, foreboding, symbolic shit.
Yeah.
Because we haven't had any of that in a while.
But you just didn't know the technical budget couldn't afford a gear to bust through a polygon like that.
Given the kind of technical, I guess you could call it wizardry that we see in the next couple of chapters in terms of how they manipulate gears and play out the scenes.
Looks like an actual director made it in a lot of times.
They could have actually done something with it. And in fact, I was actually reading a piece of the 20th anniversary concert pamphlet the other day, an interview with Takahashi. They were talking about the decision to go with the 3D backgrounds and the sprites. And he said, and part of the reason was because, one, was he wanted to try something different, and two, it gave him the opportunity to frame shots differently. Yeah. Instead of having a static, hand-drawn, pre-rendered map, he has the opportunity to kind of pan different ways. And we actually do see that here, because in this scene, as they're starting to talk about these two statues in the background, and the screen kind of pans up and down the statues as the characters are talking about it, and it creates like you said, a directed feel rather than just blocks of text telling us what's happening. Someone
thought about how to frame shots in this.
Yeah, it's almost as if, this is pre-Metal Gear Solid, correct?
In Japan, it released before Metal Gear Solid did.
Yes, we haven't seen a ton of games that frame scenes with a quote-unquote camera to deliver, a narrative effect prior to this game.
Not for story-focused games, and definitely not for RPGs. I was going to have a sidebar about that at some point, but Suikoden was all pixel top-down stuff, right?
Pronunciation conversation.
Suikoden.
I always call it Suikoden. Some people call it Suikoden, yeah. That was all Super Nintendo style, but on PlayStation.
Because I'm trying to picture games that came out before, RPGs that came out before Xenogears, and I should have looked it up, but 7 was matte paintings, Saga Frontier was pre-rendered paintings, Panzer Dragoon Saga was polygonal, but it was extremely small and limited because it was on the Saturn. Yeah. Very blown out. And I think this Grandia and Xenogears may have been the first to really think about scene and setting and try to render stuff in true 3D space that you could actually enter and feel like you were a part of, as opposed to, Final Fantasy VII had more in common with Myst than Xenogears as far as how those backgrounds go. Yeah, so level design, and I think actual level design. And I think these next couple of chapters, they really went hard on trying to direct the scenes and change perspectives and show different camera angles, so to speak. And it works. And it works really well here. So as the camera pans up, we see a couple of statues. What's your read on these two statues? They're two angels.
They are.
And it's two one-winged angels. But the thing that I caught this time isn't that identical to the busted music thing in Citan's shed?
You know what? I think you might be right.
I think it's the exact same, because there are two angels in one embrace. They each have one wing, and then Citan goes on to explain the metaphor for us. But I'm pretty sure that Faye didn't pick up on that, and I probably didn't either back in the day. But now I'm like, I didn't go back and look, but I'm pretty sure if we go either look at our notes or look at that cutscene, it's the exact same thing.
A couple of weird things about the way Citan interacts in this scene.
Yeah.
First of all, if that's true and he doesn't actually note that aloud, then again, fuck off.
Fuck Citan, yeah.
But
I have his dialogue.
One of the weird things about his dialogue is that he's impressed with everything, even though we know full well this motherfucker's from the skies.
Yeah.
So, shut up, Citan.
But he seems like a storyteller that really sells it to manipulate his own ends. He says, according to legend handed down in Nisan, God could have created humans perfectly, but then humans would not have helped each other. So that is what these great single-winged angels symbolizes. In order to fly, they are dependent on one another. Which is, do you point that as Citan not reading that Bart or Faye can pick up metaphors, or the writers not reading that their players can pick up metaphors?
I think he's trying to explicitly explain to us what this means, but I think what he's saying is not what it actually means.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Faye says the doc knows about a lot of things. Sometimes I can't understand what he's talking about.
Yeah. I wrote that down too. That was pretty funny.
Fucking artist.
This is going to tie into the next conversation. Bart is completely dense. He's like, he just completely misses all of the symbolism.
As an angel woman, so I can fuck it?
Yeah. God damn it. And at one point, Faye just kind of shakes his head while Citan's talking. Like the dialogue stops. Faye shakes his head and doesn't say anything. And all I can think is like this whole time Citan's talking, Faye is starting to realize that Citan is a fuckface. But he doesn't want to say it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Kind of picking up on it a little bit.
So the two angels, each with one wing, symbolism angle. Citan also says that these sorts of depictions are not usually gender specific.
Yeah, in this case, there's two genders.
And he says that because there's a beam of light coming down between the two angels. And he says that the space between them is the path where God advents. Or is it the path leading to God? And this is creating a very specific reference to the Gnostic concept of an aeon.
The summon in Final Fantasy X?
Well, could be. Aeon is specifically in Gnostic text refers to an emanation of God. It's almost like an angel, but it's more metaphysical. When you picture an aeon, you don't picture explicitly an angel like we are here. It's more of just like a transcendental force of God.
Yeah.
An unseen force of God.
An action of God.
In some Gnostic traditions, aeons have two parts. They're called syzygies.
Syzygy.
They are male and female counterparts. We are about to learn about the founder of Nisan. Her name is Sophia, because shortly after this conversation, Margie leads us up to see a painting of Sophia that you're not supposed to see unless you go through a bunch of traditions or whatever.
It's kind of like a Scientology level where they won't tell you about it, even though someone's probably got a cell phone video of it in Nisan somewhere.
Sophia is an aeon in Gnostic traditions. Her male counterpart is Christ.
Cool.
Yeah, it is cool. In Gnostic text, Sophia goes through some sort of fall where she leaves the Garden of Eden, so to speak, and comes to Earth and creates the Demiurge, which is sort of a creator-type god. And
action of God creates God?
Well, sort of. An emanation of God creates a creator god. And then at that point, in order to ascend back to the real God, which is the sort of the transcendent, the metaphysical God, the Gnostics believe that Sophia has to become whole again. Christ has to come down to earth and then instill knowledge in humans so that they can then figure out how to ascend back to God. So
it sounds like they're just passing stuff back and forth until the potato is too hot to handle.
Yeah, exactly. And Sophia means wisdom. So you have wisdom creating the Demiurge. The Demiurge creates humanity, and then it is unaware of its mother's influence, and it thinks that it's the real God, and that sort of gets equated in many Gnostic texts to the Judeo-Christian God, Yahweh, who we all know and love.
Human centipede. Got it.
And then Christ, of course, his mission is to come, draw out the element of Sophia within humanity, a.k.a. the divine spark, which I think is also used in Transformers.
We were close. It is the Allspark.
God.
Using the concept of gnosis. So there's a lot there, and I think that we can kind of slice up that metaphor as we go through this story, because if I were to fully equate everything from the story of Sophia to Xenogears, we would spoil the entire fucking game.
Yeah.
But if you played this game before, you might be able to see where I'm going with this.
It's good that you pulled all of that from it, that I was completely ignorant, because my only takeaway from that sentence is, whoa, they used Advent as a verb.
Yeah.
So there's actually much more there than my dumbass picked up when I was playing that at 2 o'clock on a Saturday.
Before going into this, I knew that Sophia was a Gnostic concept.
Yeah, sure.
So then I kind of looked it up and expanded upon it. But I didn't quite understand that it was a counterpart to Christ. Because we've talked about Gnosticism a little bit on this podcast before, and as it relates to this game, and sort of whenever I think of Gnosticism, I'm always thinking of like the acid trip element of it, but then you forget that it is a sect of Christianity. It's a dead sect of Christianity, but you forget about that Christ is also supposed to weave into this story. The Christ metaphor, as it relates to this game, I haven't quite figured out yet, but I'm assuming at this point it's probably maybe the main character, but I don't know.
It's a possibility. But the main character is us, Chris. Are you saying I'm divine?
Yes.
Sure. So after they finish looking at statues and Faye is kind of lost in space, Bart doesn't give a shit. Margie probably already knows this stuff, and Citan is talking to impress himself. Where do they go?
That's when they go and actually see the painting of Sophia.
In the room of Sophia.
Yes. And hey, does Sophia look like somebody to you, Eric?
Yeah, she looks like Elohim Van Houten with different hair.
Yes.
Different styled hair.
It's pretty close to the same color. It's a little bit darker, I think. And she's sort of sitting there, hands folded, kind of a half smile. I think one of the characters comments about how she looks a little sad. She's smiling, but she looks a little sad.
Yeah, that's kind of a male gaze interpretation of women a whole lot of times.
Yeah, that is true.
They always just, come on, darling, smile. You look sad. And you just, as I understand it, that's like one of the top, let's say, 20 worst things you can say to a woman who's minding her own business.
Yes.
But yeah, Sophia is introduced, I don't know if we've said it, is the founding mother of the Nisan religion and all of its teachings.
500 years ago. It's the second time we've seen the number 500.
Yeah.
The Aveh kingdom was also founded
500 years ago.
Yeah.
Numerology. Did you notice where Faye stood when he walked in the room?
No.
There's a pendant from stained glass casting a light on the ground, and Faye stood right in the middle of it as he was looking at the painting.
Yes, and it's the same pendant we've seen in the anime cutscenes.
Yes.
And
that's the pendant, right? The pendant of the Jasper? Or is that something else?
I don't know if it's the pendant of the Jasper or if it's emblematic of something else, because I believe is Sophia wearing the pendant as well, or am I making that up?
I think so. So Citan, it's funny, did you get the different observations Citan and Faye had about the painting?
Citan said that the brushstrokes are the same techniques as Faye.
Yeah, which Faye didn't understand at all or recognize.
Yeah, it's weird. So maybe you're right that Faye kind of just goes into his room and when he lived in Lahan and just kind of starts painting and doesn't have any idea of how he did it.
Sure.
And up to this point, I guess he's never really questioned how he had that ability. I mean, he knows fucking kung fu, so I mean, he also knows how to paint.
Of course. And pilot gears. Up
to this point, Faye has not questioned these elements of his existence, but I think we're starting to get a more curious Faye as we move forward here.
Curious Faye, yeah. As you said, Citan sees an atmosphere of sadness in the picture, and then what's unique about the painting in the bottom right-hand corner?
It's unfinished.
Yeah, they didn't finish it, which I had completely forgotten. It's like it's usually paintings are done in kind of outlines and then you fill it in, but this one, it's just white, like they were painting it to completion in sections, which is strange.
Yeah, it's weird. If you take the Sophia Gnostic metaphor and you think about Sophia the aeon coming down to Earth and creating humanity.
I think about that, yeah.
We can think about that a little bit. Do we think that Sophia we know she's the founder of the Nisan religion, but is she the creator of humanity?
Well, we have seen one woman coming down to Earth. I wonder what she did.
That's true. We have seen one woman come down to Earth and she was...
naked.
She was nude. Not sure why, unless she was the
clothes burned off in re-entry.
Possibly. And we also know that there's another sect of religion in this world with the Ethos. We don't know much about them yet.
Right. I think last time we wondered if Nisan and Ethos were the same thing, but we're pretty sure they're not.
I'm pretty sure they're not now because I'm assuming that Nisan itself is a metaphor for the Gnostics.
Oh, wow. Cool.
In that perhaps that the Ethos is a metaphor for perhaps the followers of the Judeo-Christian God.
They're also more commercialized and clearly more interested in making money off the knowledge.
Yeah, they're trying to do something. So It also makes me think back to the conversation we saw Citan have with the Emperor, the Skull Emperor.
Right, Skull Emperor, flashback, JPEG room.
Where he wanted to get back to paradise. And I wonder if...
He who, Citan or the Emperor?
The Emperor, yes.
Okay.
The Emperor wanted to take humanity back to paradise somehow. So that makes me wonder whether or not this paradise is the same place that the mother came from, that Sophia came from.
Yeah, maybe.
Or is it just a place where... Or are they just trying... Or does the Emperor even know about that? Or is the Emperor working along the assumption that there is just a lower level, a demiurge god that he's trying to go back to? Because I'm assuming that when humans created giants and killed God, that God is the demiurge, which was created by Sophia, if we are to align these narratives together.
It's funny, Xenogears' story gets shit on a lot, but I think the Gnostic reading that you're doing and your knowledge you're applying to this is giving it more credit than a lot of people usually bestow upon it. Like, it actually kind of, when you're framing it this way, it seems a lot more intelligent than maybe some people usually consider it.
It's intelligent insofar that it is copying a metaphor, sort of. But
sure, but it's not nothing.
The thing about Gnosticism is it's very difficult to read about. Like, I've got a book on the Gnostic Gospels, and I've consulted that a little bit, but sometimes it's easier just to read about these, especially when you're talking about the concepts at a high level. It's easier to read about it on Wikipedia, on the Xenogears wiki, so you can just kind of get those high-level concepts and then kind of see how this story is going. Currently, I am under the assumption that the Ethos is probably the worshippers of the Judeo-Christian God.
Yeah.
I don't know how Solaris fits into all this yet, though.
I don't either, actually. My knowledge of reading the perfect works is fading with time, and I don't remember that.
One of these days.
Yeah. So Faye has a flashback in the middle of all this?
Yeah. I didn't remember this.
Neither did I.
I mean, I remember it, but I don't remember it. You know what I mean?
Wearing the same clothes, same outfit. But what's he doing?
He sees... I guess he's seeing the original painting of this painting.
Yes.
It's him, but it's not him, because Sophia refers to him as Lacan.
Yeah, Lacan, like, there's just text on the screen, on a text box that says Lacan. L-A-C-N.
And that's it, right?
Yeah, that's all. I think it's just like a brief kind of a memory that they're portraying on screen as opposed to any kind of action.
So if it wasn't already explicitly clear that Ellie was an extremely important character in this narrative, it now is, because this is one of those foreshadowing or one of those foreboding things that you can't miss no matter how dense you are, because you know that she looks exactly like her. So
from Faye's perspective, his life has to be a sitcom at this point, right? Like, he meets a lady in the forest, then sees her as he escaping through a basement in a castle in a secret Air Force base, and then goes to a church and sees this same lady's picture. Like, under different direction, you could definitely frame this as a comedy of errors, just of one man falling through life, repeatedly encountering the same person.
Man, I can't fucking believe this. Another basement, another elevator. How could the same shit happen to the same guy twice?
Perhaps it is Faye's mission, destiny,
fate,
whatever, to draw out the Allspark from Ellie. The divine spark, excuse me.
They're just going to keep twisting their encounters over and over until the reaction is required happens.
Yeah, because if Faye is the Christic character and Ellie is the Sophia character, if we are to read this from a Gnostic interpretation, then we know that their fates are intertwined. Yeah. And part of that is to transcend humanity.
Citan sees all this and needs to go talk to Sister Agnes.
Yeah, he's like, we got to find out about this painting.
Is that optional? Did you go do that?
It appears to be optional, but I did go do it.
We find Sister Agnes. Once you leave, do you have anything else for the room of Sophia?
No.
You walk down, and then I think it's the next door over, and there's a bunch of sisters reading ancient scrolls.
I guess they're just doing what nuns do.
Yeah, just
reading scripture.
Yeah.
Although there's not a lot of explicit scripture, I think, in this game, because they don't have any history beyond the 500 years.
That's a good question, because Citan wants to ask Sister Agnes about it. He goes and he says, Agnes says the portrait is all they have left of that period of 500 years ago. Citan kind of calls bullshit on this and says, come on, there has to be scrolls somewhere in all of this.
Yeah.
And then Agnes coughs up that Sophia sacrificed herself for the people, but then says nothing else about it. So I get the hint that, like, maybe Agnes does know more than she lets on, or maybe the church is covering up a potentially damaging secret from a long time ago. I have no idea if that pans out or not, but it seems, I mean, the 500-year thing seems like a pretty hard deadline that But imagine if you found some world-changing shit before that period that would maybe question the nature of your religion. You definitely want to suppress that out.
Or it could be the secrets of the Nisan religion could be kept from a oral tradition only.
Oh, yeah.
And only relayed to the nuns.
Right.
Although I'm pretty sure that Margie has no fucking clue about any of this yet.
No. She's definitely, I'm sure there's been a bunch of movies about where someone, or no, it's C-3PO in fucking Jedi when he's elected king of the Ewoks without knowing a damn thing about what's happening, but is taking it on anyway because it benefits him.
Yep, that's true.
Does the Queen Mother have to be royalty?
It's
or is it a coincidence?
It's not clear, because later on, I guess we can talk about it now, but later on, Sister Agnes tells Margie that she could become queen one day if Bart gets the throne, and she's
what the fuck?
She's weirded out by that because they're cousins.
They're first cousins.
Yeah, and she should be weirded out by it. But
I mean, it gets worse than that. If you want to jump to that, she says, Margie goes, Bart and I are best friends. And Agnes goes, marriage is the best friendship.
Yeah,
which. Ooh, I mean, the whole "yes, we will kill God" thing seems equally offensive to "I need to fuck my cousin and make her queen."
God damn it!
Like, there's porn around one of those all the time, but there's no God-killing porn unless I'm.
Well, I mean,
not that I
don't try to figure out if that's true or not.
Okay,
I don't think you should. Dinosaurs. Yeah. So
we leave, and what's old Mason done for us back in town?
Well, at first when old Mason got my attention when we were in town, I thought he was frightened about something.
Yeah, he seems like that sometimes.
He seems very jumpy. But he basically just wants to tell us, hey, we got this house.
Yeah.
My guys, come on here.
Does he do a fast walk up to you to like intercept you when you're in town, or is he just waiting by a house?
I think he's just waiting by a house, but once you get within his perimeter, then the text box pops.
Takes over.
Yeah. And Sigurd wants to pretty much work out the next steps of this conflict, of this war, because I guess Bart, Faye, and Citan have been engaged in a pretty significant lore dump over the course of the past 45 minutes of this game. Mm-hmm. And during all of this, you sort of forget that we're in the middle of a conflict.
Yeah.
And that's good, though. It's a nice change of pace, because this conflict goes on for a pretty long time, and it's nice to get a little bit of a different angle. We're getting bits of lore that are feeding into the larger narrative, not just necessarily the conflict between Bart and Citan.
But as soon as we get in this rented house, there's a brief dialogue exchange, and then Bart sits on the bed to listen to more lore dumps.
Bart, he flat out asks, what's up with you, Sigurd and Gebler?
He says, that Gebler officer, you sure know a lot about Gebler.
And then Citan comes in, and he nods, and then we get a bunch of bird and nature sounds in the background. I guess, what's the point of that sound?
That's actually a music track on the soundtrack called Nature. It played on our way up to Citan's house.
Oh, okay.
But I don't, other than a way to alter, because we go through a bunch of flashback sequences here, right?
Yeah.
It's just a way to maybe kind of reset where our heads are at, kind of. I don't know what the point of that is, actually. I wondered about it, too.
Yeah, because a lot of times they use, what's the track called? The One Who Slays, or something of that nature? The track when Citan was talking to the Emperor.
Yeah. That track is called The One Who Is Torn Apart.
Yeah, The One Who Is Torn Apart tends to play when we're getting creepy lore dumps or ominous things are happening, but in this case we get nature sounds, which I guess is a signal that some shit's about to happen.
We get nature sounds, and we get the Jaws of Ice playing later in this sequence.
So at that point,
to it.
I think Sigurd comes straight out and spills the beans, and he's like, yeah, me and Citan used to live in Solaris.
The sky country that none of you all knew about, not even you, Bart, until a little while ago. That's where I was from.
There's a lot of, like we were talking about before, there's a lot of camera cuts in this screen to the different characters, panning across the scene, showing what's going on.
Yeah.
Even though there's not any movement with the characters, it's almost like it's panning for a reaction shot, even though these sprites are not detailed enough to react.
Yeah. But
it's effective, I think. I think they did a nice job of not making this a dry conversation.
Mm-hmm. Sigurd also says that Solaris calls foreigners lambs and uses them as laborers and slaves. Also, word foreigner, I don't hear that a lot anymore. That's I don't know if that's, if someone says, oh, don't talk to the foreigners, I automatically assume they're racist now.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think the meaning of that word, at least where the dialogue that I participated in, has changed over time.
Maybe they use gaijin.
Yeah, there you go. Same kind of thing.
They worked, I think Sigurd says that they worked there, but they learned to dislike the Solaris ways of slavery.
Yeah, they kind of woke up to the idea that what they were doing may not be such a good thing for humanity. And Bart is blown away by this.
He's pissed.
Yeah, how can good people work for an evil system?
Well, Bart, let me tell you about America.
Yeah. This is when the Jaws of Ice plays. which is a sinister sounding, has a violin. My key takeaway was it combines violins with violence in its intro, and then it has some Super Nintendo sound chip ass humming going on in the background for the rest of it.
Is this about when Sigurd makes it clear that, well, first he makes it clear that, hey, we're not on Gebler's team anymore.
Yeah, he wanted, well, are they, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, Citan wanted to distance themselves from it, and in the Jaws of Ice, there's also a kind of a percussive fiddling that makes it sound playful and contemplative. It's just a really weird, because it starts to be a serious track, then it kind of gets nutty at the end, which is kind of a lot for this whole sequence.
Is this the part where we get to ask some questions?
I think so.
Would you like to do a bit?
Sure.
Where I ask you the questions, and you tell me the answers to the questions.
It's a possibility.
Are you ready for the bit?
Let's do it.
So Bart is the one asking questions here. Mm-hmm. His first question, I guess you don't necessarily have to ask all these questions.
Yeah.
Or maybe you can ask them more than once. Or maybe they're just trying to give you some agency because there's a lot of cutscenes in this fucking part of the game.
Yeah.
Bart's first question, where is Solaris?
Doesn't he say, Etrinek, the capital of Solaris Empire, is located in the skies above, and is separated by a dimensional distortion field known as a gate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then he asks, what are lambs?
Should I put in a ding noise if I got the question right?
Well, yes. Sure, why not?
What are lambs? What are lambs? I don't know, Chris. What are lambs exactly?
Well, the key takeaway from this question, because I think at this point when we ask what are lambs, we already know that. As an observer of this game, we already know what a lamb is because we've already interacted with a couple of people who have used the term. But the specific bit that is drawn out here is that Sigurd says that Solaris supports its population with surface dwellers. So,
oh right, they abduct people.
Yes, a quote unquote pure Solarian is kind of a rare thing.
Yeah, about 25% of the population, he says, right?
Yes, and so I guess they abduct people like aliens or something.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not
what
really
I was
sure.
thinking, like kidnapping people.
Because we haven't really heard about people. You know, you figured that maybe you would have heard about random disappearances at this point.
Well, maybe it's all the other villages that just have people wind up missing. You know, Lahan was just special.
True. So they use that, and then they kind of divide them into jobs. It's kind of like the Giver.
I don't know that I was assigned Hatchet in that year of school.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in the Giver, you are given an aptitude test, and then you were assigned that role for your societal purpose.
Gattaca.
Yeah, that works too. Although I think that's a
genetic
thing. Yeah. The next question is kind of broad, so if you don't even remember,
is it about jobs?
It says, "Who is that man?" He's referring to Ramses here, and
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that man is Ramses, and the only thing that comes from this question is that Sigurd and Citan both once worked for Ramses.
We were placed in key positions on the surface by Ramses.
In the last question,
on the surface where they currently are.
Ooh.
What do you think?
Well,
double, triple agent shit.
There is some double and triple agent shit going on here, but I'm not sure if that's necessarily true with Sigurd because later on we get some more information on Sigurd and why he left.
I'm just from the perspective of learning about this now.
Yeah, that's true. And then the last question is, why did you leave?
Wasn't it something along the lines of, we thought, is this where they explained that Ramses had, like at the time Ramses was our hope. They both, Sigurd and Citan agreed with Ramses, thought he was a revolutionary, like a Che Guevara type thing, and that they wanted to change the system and he seemed genuine, but then they were like, nah, this dude's bullshit.
That's a part of it, because they talk about that a lot, because I'm not sure explicitly what they saw in Ramses. Like, what was he going to do? Was he going to lift humanity?
He seemed like a charismatic leader that maybe wanted to change the whole abducting people and making slave labor type thing. There's one thing we didn't get to yet is Sigurd explains the job system and says that, yeah, sometimes people are brainwashed, which sounds a lot like Obama saying,
we tortured some folks.
It's kind of like, whoa, hey, whoa, we did what? What are we? You're not supposed to admit that, sir. What do you stop?
The other thing they mentioned is that they did not agree with the human experiments, such as the drive.
Yeah, the humans are used as guinea pigs for drug tests, which I imagine is people that they're kidnapping off the surface and just doing God knows what to.
Yeah.
Soylent Green is people.
And then once the questions are complete, you can ask them again for some goddamn reason, as if you wanted to read more text in this game. Or you can tell Old Mason to go reserve the town hall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if your mom said you had to go eat some spaghetti and you forgot what it was when you came back and you hit the button again, you can read it all over again.
Yep. So at that point, Bart storms off because he's pissed and he's upset and he's dealing with, Bart's all up in his...
I thought you were my friend.
Yeah, he's in that.
Jerk.
Jerk mode. You leave with just Faye and Citan in your party, and when you're walking around the town this time, Bonds of Sea and Fire is playing.
Yes, Bonds of Sea and Fire plays again. One more thing we learn when they're talking about Drive, though, in that sequence is Bart says he saw Drive in Ellie's room.
True.
When they were at the base.
That's a bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah.
And when we walk outside, we hear Bonds of Sea and Fire again, and we're supposed to go look for Bart and kind of bring him back to the town hall so we can plan our next steps for the assault on Aveh. But first, we have to do our talking about our feelings on a bridge conversation in this game number 2.
Round 2, right?
Yes. This time, Bart's feelings. And there's not a lot here. Bart's just kind of working out his feelings about what he just heard. And then Citan sort of recites the story that Bart was just told by Sigurd. And Bart kind of looks at him and he's like, why are you being such a dick? I already know that. It's like, I just heard Sigurd fucking say that.
Yeah.
And then they kind of wonder if they can beat Gebler. But they can only do that if Bart, like, Citan's like, one thing at a time. We can't even think about trying to beat Gebler if you're not on the throne first. Because once you're on the throne, you're going to have the authority to maybe pull more groups in to help us.
But they can't put him on the throne without beating Gebler. It's kind of a weird reflective problem.
It is. I think maybe he was talking about Gebler at large.
Oh, okay.
Like when Gebler comes for us. Because
the war, not the battle.
I think we kind of know, I think everybody kind of knows this point, is that Shakan is a puppet ruler for Solaris.
I think they literally say that later.
And I don't think Bart and his people don't foresee themselves being a puppet for Solaris. So if they refuse that, then Gebler's going to come for them eventually in full force, I think is what they think.
But then they get back in that now empty town hall.
And Sigurd announces that he has gotten a table.
Hell yeah.
Which is a weird thing for...
Yeah, it's like some guy, does he say they bought a table or somebody loaned us a table?
They got a table from Grandma's shop.
Yeah, I imagine some artist made that table and was super proud of it. So like, oh, you know what, Lenny, we're gonna highlight your table right here. They're gonna talk about your table.
The table kind of looked like this table that we are recording this podcast on right now.
Is that foreshadowing?
What, that we're in this game?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that we're gonna take down Gebler.
Oh yeah, that's true. Bart says a lot of things when he walks in here, but I just wrote down that Bart says, let's fucking get it, because I think he's ready to go now.
Yeah, everyone is sufficiently motivated to take down Ramses and Gebler and Shakan. And
this is something, the next thing is something that I completely forgot about.
Yeah, it's way overdone.
It is way overdone, but I love it. Probably because of my history with Suikoden. That game always has a brilliant tactician that's sort of like the second or third in command of your army. Mm-hmm. And it's always fun to see them use the power of tactics to outwit the opponent.
They pull up a 3D map with geometry shapes.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the brilliant strategist here is Citan. I guess fortunately or unfortunately.
No, the guy knows it's going to happen.
He has
a plan.
Yes, he has been to commander school after all.
Yes, of course.
And ultimately, his plan is it's a 3-pronged attack where Bart is going to take over Aveh. Faye is going to lead a small force around the Kislev border to kind of distract them.
He's going to engage Vandercom directly to distract them because they think he's weak.
Yeah, Citan, for some reason, Citan knows all about Vandercom's weaknesses here.
So he loves naval guns and doesn't know how to fight gears, and that he seems like an idiot.
Yeah, and I mean...
We previously said he had been demoted, right?
Yeah, he was demoted because they lost the assault on Bart's lair.
Right.
And he was demoted, and that's the moment when Ramses was promoted to be in charge of this force. And I guess at this point it's not curious, but it is funny to note that Citan knows all about this. And,
and of course.
What have you.
And what's the third pillar?
The third pillar is something happening around the border at Nisan?
Yeah. I think, I don't know if we actually participate in that, but it's a distractionary force to kind of do something there. Like, is that the feint they're talking about?
Yeah, they're trying to feign an attack on the forces around the Nisan border to
draw them away from Aveh.
To distract them.
Ludovik.
But they know they don't have the forces to actually pull off that attack. So it's a calculated risk, but I think they think their odds are better because Faye is with them and he can lead this force. And he's totally up for it.
He's up for it. He says, we're friends to the end now, which is kind of the first thing he said in a long time. And I feel like we're not getting a lot of interiority for Faye. And is that because, as the player character, Faye is us, is it because they're doing this for plot reasons, or is it because Faye has no interiority and acts purely in the moment?
I think a little bit of both. I think mostly Faye has resigned himself to the fact that he is going to see this conflict through to the end. And he is going to participate in this because he has already...
He signed up.
He's signed up for this shit.
I live for this shit!
He doesn't necessarily live for this shit, but he signed up for this shit.
That, or I think he just wants to see Ellie again, maybe.
That's true,
He's on the train, because he knows the train's going to take him there again soon at some point.
It's got to. And, you know, what's funny about all this, too, is that Citan is the one that suggests that Faye lead a small force to face Vandercom at the Kislev border, and Citan knows exactly what he's doing here.
Yes, precisely what he's doing.
Exactly what he's doing here, which we can reference later.
In the next chapter.
Which is recapture Aveh. So we leave the town hall, and we're ready to get this shit started, right?
Yeah, we're on the Yggdrasil. There's some parting dialogue.
Faye mentions that he's going to go raise some hell in his Veltal, which is a very uncharacteristic thing to say.
Yeah,
but I like it. I like this new Faye.
Yeah, ready for violence. Bart and Margie have some interactions. Bart tells Margie, "Shut up, stupid, don't bug me," after she expresses trepidation, which seems harsh.
This is also the part where we see Margie find out that she may have to become the queen at some point.
Yeah, and marry her cousin.
The problematic marriage of cousins to instill a monarchy, a gross monarchy.
I mean, most of the British monarchy's inbred at some point.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. It's unfortunate that we have to go down this path, but
so anyway,
who are we to judge their culture?
Right, of course not. Faye gets in the hangar, the hangar for the Yggdrasil, and then one of my favorite lines of this entire project comes out when the commander calls Faye son. What does Faye say back? Did you get that? He said, "Don't call me son because you ain't my pops."
Yeah, I remember that too. I didn't write that down.
Which is great.
Yeah.
I was on the website where they kind of go over how bad the localization is, and they were like, no, this one's actually pretty good. This is actually almost to the metal as far as how that was. And then Faye gets his own crew here. Do you have their names?
I know there's one of them is named Maitreya.
General Maitreya, Falcon, and Vind.
Are those references to anything, or are those just names?
I think it's just names. But they are named, but they don't have portraits. So what does that mean?
They're probably going to die?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There's also a moment of sad music playing.
Yeah.
While Bart wishes Faye good luck, and he sort of thanks him for his service, I guess. There's not much else there. It's just supposed to be a touching scene between Bart and Faye, although there's nothing.
Like a parting sequence, as if they're going to be separated by time soon.
Yeah. And then it's time for a sick launching FMV scene.
Yeah, no, this is CG. This is not FMV. This is actual computer-generated graphics.
Yeah, it's awesome.
The first time we've seen that. It's not anime.
It's really cool because we get a cool shot of the Veltal kind of standing up from I think it was in a kneeling pose, and it's kind of standing up, and the camera zooms in it, and it's like, it doesn't necessarily make any sort of robot noises, or its eyes don't light up or anything, but it just kind of zooms in on its face, and it kind of looks cool and badass. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of launches off into the desert.
Yeah, it's got that aircraft carrier launch.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And then who do we control after that?
Well, first we notice the moon is still red, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I wrote in, why am I controlling Citan? I don't want to be Citan right now.
We're controlling Citan, and as far as I'm concerned, there's only one actual interaction worth a shit while you control Citan.
There might be two.
Might be two?
Yeah.
Which one do you have?
Well, I have a guy in the bunk wonders if his bar tab will be canceled if Bart is the king.
I went in the bunks too. That was a good question. I think a guy I always check in with the guy that's got the Merry fan club, and he was talking about rescuing his pictures if the ship went down.
I missed that. I also talked to the doctor that's obsessed with viscera.
Yes.
And
did you get weighed?
Huh?
Did she weigh you? Did you get
Yeah,
weighed?
my weight was good.
Fuck yeah.
Weight's okay. She also says tomorrow is finally the day for blood blowing, flesh falling, and she kind of just uses all these visceral terms to describe body parts falling off.
Blood blowing.
Yes, when she's meaning to say other terms like to describe the ultimate battle that is impending.
Do you get the feeling that they don't have the best quality doctor aboard the Yggdrasil?
I
They
do.
found some kind of damaged person who's way too into their job.
In fact, one guy in the doctor's office or the whatever this is says that when he came in there he wasn't injured and now he is.
That's really good. That's pretty good.
So sometimes when I hear about how the translation in this game is bad, like I agree with certain elements of it, but the quips and the jokes are sometimes they're on point.
That's all right. Here's a question. Does the doctor sleep in a room? Is that also her room as her office?
I didn't note a bed.
That doesn't matter. Does the doctor sleep in her room?
Probably.
On that thing that they put the tissue paper on?
I guess.
So you didn't have any other interactions there?
That's all I have, yeah.
I went and visited Choo Choo.
Oh yeah, what did Choo Choo have to say?
Choo Choo said, "It's Choo noisy. Is it some kind of festival?"
Well, Choo Choo, it is sort of a festival of death and murder and war. But,
Absolutely.
yeah.
You wouldn't know about that.
No, Choo Choo wouldn't know about that.
Not yet.
Choo Choo's not been sortied yet.
Is that it?
Yeah, then
For
you
City of Peace?
before the City of Peace ends, Citan has to climb to the roof of the Yggdrasil. And
Oh, is this where he has a conversation with Bart and Sigurd?
he just eavesdrops, actually.
Oh, okay.
And it's mostly just a heartfelt conversation between Sigurd and Bart about what they're about to go through. There's no new bits of lore dropped here.
There's longing to return to the castle.
Yeah, and then at some point, the camera pans back down to Citan, and he basically wonders why he sucks so much more than Sigurd. I didn't write down his exact line of dialogue, but his comment is basically like, man, Sigurd is a good guy.
What the hell happened to Bart?
Yeah, and no, I'm talking about Citan's wondering if he himself, why he himself
Yeah.
sucks.
So there's some self-reflection there.
Yeah,
Weird.
like he wonders why he's not as good of a man as Sigurd.
Why can't I stop doing evil things?
Yes, I don't know, Citan.
But yeah, Bart says it doesn't matter who the king is as long as it's a symbol of hope, and then it pans up to a blood red moon, and that's where this chapter ends.
A lot of blood red moons lately.
Absolutely.
And there's been a couple of days, there's been multiple days have passed.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it always a full moon on this planet?
I guess it has to be.
That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't, because we know there was at least one sleeping sequence.
Yeah.
The night that Bart's lair was attacked, but I don't.
Maybe there's two suns that are at completely diametric opposites, and it always illuminates the moon in full.
That's as good of a theory as I could have come up with.
Well, then there wouldn't be night. Fuck.
Yeah.
Never
it's
mind.
True. Well, if you know anything about multiple suns, multiple
Lunar
moons,
cycles.
yeah, lunar
How
cycles,
can this can possibly be explained?
yes, please email us at whatever our email address is. Slide in the DMs,
Man.
my dudes. So now it's time to recapture Aveh,
That's right.
is it not? And it's time for our podcast to be over tonight. This one. We're going to record another one that if you're listening to this podcast in real time, you won't hear for another week, so sorry.
Chris is vamping while he looks for his outro script.
Thanks for joining us today. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/retroam. Follow us on Twitter at retroamnesiapod. Email us things, corrections, comments, concerns, etc. at retrogradeamnesiapodcast@gmail.com. Also, email us information about lunar cycles at retrogradeamnesiapodcast@gmail.com, and we will discuss that in the future. We promise. Review us on your favorite podcast service, such as Apple Music. Is that what it's called now? Apple Music? Apple Podcast? Apple. Review us on Apple or Google Play or whatever. Thank you, Mark Shepard, for the introductory track. It is wonderful. I love it. Let's do it every day. And we're not on Facebook. Nope, we're not doing Facebook. We are not going to be on Facebook. Until next time.
Yes, we will kill God.
And now you may go back to sleep. Oh, when you said cup, I was thinking about
Mr. Head.
Cup the Head.
He told me we sounded like NPR.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Right? This is flat. No. If we are to
You're going to forget it.
syzygy.
Write it phonetically on your piece of paper. Let's say it is, and if it's not, I'll delete this part.
That's a good idea.
Cool.
You should make that your Metacritic quote. Definitely better than a game from 2004.
Hey, Computer Eric here. It turns out the thing inside Citan's tool shed wasn't the two one-winged angels. I was wrong, but I already edited the music in and it sounds cool. Whoops.